Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It is good to be here.
Today is, I think it's a significant one. We're going to be doing something that feels a little bit like, like time travel.
I like that.
We're stepping back.
Yeah.
Way, way back. Right into the absolute bedrock of Western thought.
It's foundational stuff.
Yeah. We're going to a prison cell.
Yeah.
In Athens. And it's in the darkness just before dawn in the year 399 BC.
It's a heavy setting. And I think for anyone listening who thinks philosophy is just, people in tweed jackets sitting around a comfortable library debating the definitions of words.
Right.
This text is going to be a shock to the system. This is philosophy with the highest stakes imaginable. We are not dealing with abstract theory here. We are dealing with life and death.
Literally, life and death. We're looking at a text that captures a conversation between a man who has been condemned to die and his oldest, most desperate friend.
The man, of course, is Socrates.
And his friend is Crito. And the mission of this deep dive, really, is to unpack one of the most famous arguments in history about the duty of a citizen, the nature of justice, and a question that I think keeps a lot of us up at night, even today.
What's that?
Is it ever right to break the law? Especially if that law is being used unjustly to kill you.
That is the ultimate test of integrity, isn't it? I mean, it's very easy to be a good citizen when the laws are protecting you, when the economy is good and your property is safe.
Yeah.
It is a very, very different thing to remain a good citizen when the state has unjustly, and I think we can all agree, historically speaking, it was unjustly condemned you to execution.
And that's the core tension we're exploring today. So before we get into the heavy argumentation, help us set the stage, paint the picture. Who exactly are we dealing with here?
Well, we have two main characters. First, obviously, Socrates. At this point, he's about 70 years old. He's spent his entire life in Athens. He's the gadfly of the state, the man who questioned everyone, annoyed the powerful, and eventually got himself put on trial for two main charges. Corrupting the youth.
Which is a classic.
Classic charge against any public intellectual. And for impiety, which is a bit more complex. It's basically not believing in the city's gods.
And just for context, this isn't just some grumpy old man they've locked up. In Athens, Socrates is a celebrity, maybe a notorious figure.
A notorious figure is probably better, absolutely. He is a polarizing figure. He's walked the streets for decades, publicly dismantling the egos of the politicians, the poets, the artisans, anyone who claimed to have knowledge.
You made a lot of enemies.
A lot of powerful enemies. And finally, the city had enough. They put him on trial, which is a whole other text, the Apology, and he was sentenced to death by drinking a poison, hemlock.
So as our text opens today, the one we're diving into, Crito, he's in prison, just waiting for that sentence to be carried out.
Waiting for the day. And
then we have the other player in this drama, Crito. Who is he to Socrates?
Crito is fascinating because he is Socrates' contemporary. He's also an old man, but he is not a philosopher in the same steel nerve sense that Socrates is.
He's a regular guy.
He's a very rich, regular guy. Yeah. He's wealthy, he's well-meaning, he's incredibly loyal, a lifelong friend, but he's also a man of the world. He cares about reputation, he cares about what people think, he cares about money, and right now, he is absolutely terrified of losing his companion.
So let's look at the text itself. It opens in a very specific, very quiet way. It's dark, it's early. What is happening?
It's a beautiful, quiet, almost cinematic moment. The text tells us it's the dawn not yet broken. It's still technically night. And Crito is just sitting there in the prison cell watching Socrates sleep.
Which brings up a question. How did he even get in? You'd think a prison holding a high-profile political prisoner would have, visiting hours.
Well, this tells you everything you need to know about Crito. He bribed the jailer. He is a man who believes that problems can be solved with resources. He's a benefactor. He slipped the jailer some money. And apparently the jailer knows him well by now because Crito has been visiting often. And he got in before the sun came up.
Just to sit there and watch his friends sleep.
Yeah. And when Socrates finally does wake up, Crito is amazed.
Amazed by what?
By how peaceful Socrates is. He asks him, essentially, how can you sleep so soundly when you know what's coming? Crito says he's been up all night, pacing, anxious, a total wreck. And here's Socrates, the man facing execution, sleeping like a baby.
It really paints a picture of their characters right from the jump, doesn't it? Crito is the anxious wreck. Socrates is the stoic.
Totally. Socrates even says something about his happy disposition. He refuses to repine. That's a great word, repine. It means to fret or to complain.
I like that.
Socrates says it would be absurd for a man of 70 to complain that he has to die. He's already accepted it. It establishes his his bona fides immediately. He's into talk about philosophy being a preparation for death. He is walking the walk. He's not afraid.
But Crito didn't come just to watch him sleep. He's there for a reason. He brought news.
He brings the ticking clock. This is the crisis that drives the whole discussion. In Athens, there was a rule that they couldn't execute anyone while the sacred ship was away on its mission to Delos.
Okay, can you explain that a bit for us? What is this ship?
It's a religious observance, and it's tied to the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. Every year, the Athenians sent a ship, a state galley, to the island of Delos to honor the god Apollo.
And while it's gone?
As long as that ship was sailing, from the moment the priest crowns its stern to the moment it returns, the city had to remain ritually pure. And that meant no public executions.
So this religious holiday, this festival, was the delay that kept Socrates alive in prison for a month after his trial, right?
Exactly. It gave him this grace period. But Crito has heard reports from travelers, from people coming from Sunium, that's the tip of the peninsula, that the ship has been spotted. It's almost home.
Which means the ban on executions is about to be lifted.
Yes. Crito assumes the ship will arrive today. And if it arrives today, the execution will happen tomorrow. So the timeline has suddenly collapsed. They don't have weeks anymore. They have hours.
And Socrates, being Socrates, has this weirdly mystical response to what is basically his 24-hour notice of death. He doesn't panic. He talks about a dream.
This is a crucial moment, because it shows us that Socrates isn't just a logic machine. He believes he has a connection to the divine, something he sometimes called his daimonion.
The inner voice.
Right. He tells Crito that while he was sleeping, he had a vision of a fair and comely woman dressed in brilliant white. She calls to him and she quotes a line from Homer's Iliad.
And what's the line?
She says, "The third day hence to fertile Phthia shalt thou go."
Fertile Phthia. That sounds delightfully vague. What does that actually mean to a Greek at that time?
Oh, it's a deep cultural reference. Every educated Greek would know this line. In the Iliad, Achilles, the great warrior, is threatening to quit the Trojan War. He's furious with Agamemnon, and he says he's going to take his ships and sail home to Phthia. For Achilles, Phthia represents safety, home, the end of the struggle.
So for Socrates, going to Phthia is a metaphor for death, for his soul going home.
Exactly. He interprets this to mean that his soul is returning to its true source. It's a homecoming. But more importantly, he interprets the timing. The third day hence.
Not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow. He tells Crito, the ship won't be here today. It'll be delayed by the winds or something. I won't die tomorrow. I'll die the day after.
It's just incredible. Even with the clock ticking, he's calm enough to analyze poetry from a dream and correct Crito's intelligence reports. That is a level of confidence I can't even imagine.
Supreme confidence. But of course, Crito is not comforted by this at all. He didn't come to discuss Homer. He came with a getaway car, metaphorically speaking.
Right. Okay, let's get to the crisis. Crito didn't just come to give a weather report on the ship. He came with a plan.
A fully funded, fully staffed escape plan. This is the crux of the first part of the text. Crito is begging, pleading with Socrates to leave. He's arranged everything.
What does that mean? Everything.
He and other friends, he names Simmias the Theban and Sebes, who are foreigners and not really bound by Athenian law in the same way, have pooled their money. It's all ready.
I have to ask, was breaking out of prison in ancient Athens really that easy? We think of maximum security today, but this sounds almost porous.
It was incredibly porous if you had money. The prison system wasn't like a modern supermax. It was more of a holding cell. Crito explicitly says the informers, the people who might rat them out, are cheap to bribe.
So you just pay them off?
You just pay them off. And the jailer is already compromised. We know Crito has been paying him off just to visit. So getting Socrates out of the cell is the easy part.
Yep.
And they have a destination.
Where would he go?
Crito has friends in Thessaly, a region up north. It was known for being a bit wilder, less structured than Athens. His friends there will protect Socrates, they can smuggle him out, get him to a safe house, and he can live out his final years in exile.
So the logistical path is completely clear. There is no physical barrier to Socrates walking out of that cell. The door is basically open.
The door is open. The only thing keeping Socrates in that cell is Socrates himself.
And Crito must know Socrates is stubborn. So he doesn't just present the logistics. He comes armed with a whole battery of emotional arguments. He tries to guilt trip him.
He really does. It is a barrage of moral pressure. And we should sympathize with Crito here. He's acting out of love and desperation.
Of course.
He starts with the personal, the most obvious one. If you die, I lose a friend who can never be replaced. That is the grief talking. But then he pivots to something arguably more shallow, but very, very real for a Greek citizen. reputation.
This is the public opinion argument.
Right. Crito is worried about what the general public, the hoi polloi, will think. He says, people who don't know us well, who don't know you and me, Socrates, will think I was too cheap to save you.
That seems so petty in the face of death. Don't die, Socrates, because people will think I'm stingy.
It sounds petty to us, I agree. But in that culture, friendship was a public duty. If you had the means to save your friend and you didn't, it was a profound mark of shame. It implied you valued your money more than a human life. Crito is saying, don't make me look like a miser and a coward, Socrates. My reputation is on the line here too.
It's a fascinating cultural difference.
No.
Okay, but he goes deeper than just reputation. He brings up the kids.
This is the heavy artillery. Socrates has young sons. We know he has one grown son, Lamprocles, and two young ones, Sophroniscus and Menexenus, and Crito accuses him of betrayal.
Betrayal of his own children.
Yes. He says, essentially, you are taking the easy way out by dying. You're abandoning your sons, leaving them as orphans to be raised by chance, uneducated, unsupported. A good man, a real father, would fight to stay alive and raise his children. He is hitting Socrates right in his duty as a father.
That's a tough accusation, calling a man a bad father moments before his death.
He even throws the word cowardice in there. He explicitly contrasts Socrates' choice with manliness or virtue erect. He says Socrates is choosing the easier path, not the path of virtue. He fears that the whole affair, the trial, the imprisonment, and now the execution, will be chalked up to their cowardice. We could have saved him, but we didn't have the courage to act.
So Crito is frantic. The ship is coming. The bribes are ready. The reputation of his friends is on the line. The future of his children is on the line. It seems like a slam dunk. From almost any modern perspective, you'd say, run, live to fight another day. Why wouldn't you escape?
And that is exactly where Socrates hits the brakes. He listens to all this whole torrent of emotion, and he says, okay, Crito, your zeal is invaluable if it is right. But if it is wrong, the greater the zeal, the greater the danger.
Classic Socrates. Let's pause and think about this logically while I'm literally on death row.
It is his superpower. He refuses to be swayed by emotion or by adrenaline. He says, I am and always have been one of those natures who must be guided by reason, and by reason alone. He wants to examine if the principles they held before the trial, when they were sitting comfortably in the marketplace, still hold true now that he's facing death.
This is such a crucial point, he's asking. Does philosophy actually work in the dark? Or is it just a fun hobby for sunny days?
Exactly. If your principles change because you're scared, then they weren't principles. They were just preferences. They were conveniences.
So let's unpack his rebuttal. He starts by dismantling Crito's biggest fear, this obsession with public opinion. Crito is paralyzed by what the many will think. Socrates, not so much.
No. Socrates uses one of his favorite analogies here, the gymnast, or the athlete. He asks Crito a very simple question. If you are training to be a professional athlete whose opinion matters,
right?
Do you listen to every random person in the stands? Do you listen to the guy selling snacks? Do you listen to praise and blame from just anyone?
No, of course not. You listen to your coach.
Or, Socrates says, do you listen to the one person, the physician or the trainer, who actually has knowledge, who actually knows what they are talking about? The answer is obvious.
And if you listen to the crowd, you're going to get hurt. You'll ruin your body.
Exactly. If the crowd tells you to eat the wrong things or train the wrong way, you destroy your body. Socrates establishes a critical point here. Expertise matters. Truth is not a democracy. It doesn't matter if 1,000 people say one thing. If the one expert says the opposite, the expert is right.
And then he pivots this whole analogy from the physical body to something else.
This is the critical move. He says, okay, just as the body is improved by health and ruined by disease, there is a part of us, he calls it the soul, or the ethical self, that is improved by justice and ruined by injustice.
Now, when he says soul here, we shouldn't necessarily think of like a ghost in the machine, right? He means something more like the self or your character.
Right. The psyche, it's the seat of your moral worth, your integrity. And he argues, and this is key, the soul is infinitely more valuable than the body.
More valuable than life itself?
Far more. To Socrates, life itself isn't the highest good. The good life is the highest good. And by good, he doesn't mean champagne and villas. He means a just, honorable, virtuous life.
So his logic is this. The crowd, the many, They can kill my body. They can smash the vessel. But they cannot make me wise or shoeless. They can't force me to be unjust. Therefore, they cannot truly harm the part of me that really matters.
Precisely. He says the many act by chance. They might do good, they might do evil, but it's random. They don't operate from knowledge. Therefore, their opinion is irrelevant. We should ignore the opinion of the mob completely and only listen to the one who understands justice, which is truth itself.
Which is a very polite, very philosophical way of telling Crito, stop worrying about what the neighbors will think. They don't know what they're talking to.
It is. But it clears the deck. Now that we've established that fear of the crowd or reputation or money or even providing for your children doesn't get to be the deciding factor, we are left with the only question that counts.
Is it right to escape?
Not is it safe?
Sure.
Not is it popular, but is it just?
And to answer that, Socrates lays down a core ethical principle. And honestly, this feels so far ahead of its time. It's almost Christian in its ethics, centuries before Christ.
It is incredibly radical. Socrates gets Crito to agree to a premise, a starting point. It's something they've apparently agreed on many times before. The premise is, it is never right to do evil or to act unjustly.
Okay, that's standard enough. I think most people would agree with that on a Sunday morning.
Right, but then he takes the next radical step. If it is never right to do evil, then it is never right to return evil for evil. Retaliation is forbidden.
That is huge. I mean, ancient Greek culture, and let's be honest, modern culture too, is largely built on an eye for an eye. You hit me, I hit you back.
Absolutely. The traditional definition of justice in that era was often summarized as helping your friends and harming your enemies. If someone hurt you, you were expected to hurt them back. That was a matter of honor. Socrates is rejecting that entirely. He says that the opinion of the many is wrong.
He separates himself from the morality of the many.
Completely. He says, even if you were wronged, even if you were beaten, even if you were unjustly condemned to death by your own city, you cannot strike back, and striking back involves committing a new injustice.
So he's setting a logical trap for Crito here.
He's building a logical cage, and he's getting Crito to hand him the bars one by one. He asks, is injuring someone doing evil? Crito says yes. Is breaking a valid agreement an injury? Crito has to say yes.
Okay.
So if leaving prison without the state's consent is an injury to the laws and injuring is doing evil, then escaping is wrong, even if the state injured Socrates first.
Because two wrongs don't make a right.
It sounds like a cliche to us because we've heard it a million times, but in 399 BC, this was a mind-bending assertion. He is saying that his moral integrity, the health of his soul, relies on him accepting the punishment, even if the punishment is unjust, because dodging it would require him to commit a new injustice.
This leads us to the most famous part of the text, the heart of it, and I want to spend some real time here. Socrates knows this is a huge leap for Crito to make, so he changes tactics. He imagines that the laws of Athens, the actual laws themselves, take on human form.
The personification of the laws. It's a brilliant literary device. It's one of the most powerful moments in all of philosophy.
So instead of Socrates lecturing Crito,
he lets the laws interrogate him. It distances him from the argument and makes it seem like this objective, overwhelming force of reason.
So you have to picture this. Socrates is about to step out the door, and these giant ghostly figures, the laws of Athens and the Commonwealth, appear and block his path, and they start grilling him. Socrates, what are you doing? In escaping, are you not trying to destroy us, the laws, and the whole state?
And their argument isn't just, we are the police, stop. It's much deeper, much more personal. They basically present three main arguments for why he must stay and die. The first is what we might call the parent or creator argument.
The we made you argument.
Yes. The laws ask him directly. Did we not regulate the marriage of your father and mother under which you were conceived? Did we not oversee your nurture and education in music and gymnastics? They argue that they provided the very structure in which Socrates was conceived, born, and raised.
So they see themselves not just as rules on a scroll, but as his parents.
Even more than parents. They say Socrates is their child and slave. It's a very harsh hierarchical relationship. They make the point. You can't strike your father just because he struck you. You're not on equal terms. In the same way, the laws argue, you cannot destroy us just because we are destroying you.
That is a tough pill to swallow for a modern individualist. The idea that the state literally owns you because it facilitated your birth and education.
It is the ancient view of the polis. The city isn't just a service provider that you pay taxes to. It's the source of your identity. Without the city, you are a beast or a god, as Aristotle would later say, but not a man. The laws are saying, you are an Athenian. That is who you are. You owe us your very existence.
So if the state is your father, you just have to obey it, even if your father is, say, drunk and trying to kill you unjustly.
Well, Socrates qualifies this slightly. He says you must either obey or persuade the state that it is wrong. That's a crucial out.
And he tried to do that.
He tried to persuade them at his trial. He gave the speech of a lifetime. And he failed. The jury was not persuaded. So now the only honorable option left is to obey. He can't just punch his father in the face because he lost the argument.
Okay, so that's argument 1, respect your creator. Argument 2 feels a bit more modern, a bit more familiar to us. It's about consent.
This is the social contract argument in its earliest form. The laws point out that Socrates has lived in Athens for 70 years.
And he was never forced to stay. He could have left at any time.
Exactly. They say, we publish our laws openly. We tell every citizen, once you come of age and you see how we administer justice and run the city, if you don't like how we do things, you are free to take your property and go.
Where could he go?
To a colony or to any other city that would have him. They emphasize the openness of the border. Athens didn't build a wall to keep people in. It was a choice to stay.
But Socrates stayed.
He stayed. And not only did he stay, he never left. The laws really rub this in. They say he never left the city to go to festivals or games, except once to the Isthmus. He never traveled like other Athenians did. He was so content with Athens that he chose to raise his children there.
So they're saying his feet did the talking. By hanging around for 7 decades and raising his kids there, he effectively signed the contract.
He entered into a tacit compact, an implied agreement to obey the laws. And they twist the knife a bit here. They remind him that even during his trial, the penalty was up for debate. He could have proposed exile as his punishment. The state likely would have accepted it.
But he didn't. He refused.
He stood up in court and said he preferred death to exile. He said he didn't want to live anywhere else.
So to run away now
would be the ultimate hypocrisy. The laws say, you made this covenant with us at your leisure, not under duress or compulsion, and now you want to run away like a miserable slave. It's a devastating critique of his integrity if he were to flee.
It's a powerful argument. So they've established he's their child and that he signed the contract. Then they move to the third point.
Yeah.
The practical consequences. This is the what happens if you actually do this argument.
Right. It's the pragmatic part. Suppose he breaks the contract. What actually happens next? First, he ruins his friends.
Crito and the others.
Crito, Simmias, Sebas, they will all be persecuted. They will be seen as accomplices. They'll be fined, possibly exiled themselves, or have their property confiscated for aiding and abetting a fugitive. So he directly harms the very people trying to save him.
Okay, that's a good point. What else?
Second, where does he go? If he goes to a well-governed city, a place with good laws like Thebes or Megara, how will they see him? He arrives as an enemy. Everyone there respects the law, so they will look at Socrates, the famous lawbreaker, with suspicion. He will single-handedly confirm the Athenian jury's verdict that he is a corrupter of youth and a subverter of laws.
He can't very well preach virtue if he just proved he lacks it himself.
Exactly. How can he stand up at a dinner party in Thebes and talk about justice and the good life when he just broke out of jail to save his own skin? It would be a complete farce. His life's work would be invalidated by his final act.
And what if he goes to a place that isn't well governed, like Crito's friends in Thessaly?
The laws are very, very snarky about Thessaly. They view it as a disorderly, chaotic place full of revelry. They say, sure, the Thessalians might find it funny at first. They'll be entertained by the story of the old philosopher escaping prison in some ridiculous disguise.
A disguise. They mention a disguise.
It's a great detail. They suggest he'd have to sneak out dressed up, maybe in a shepherd's coat or a leather skin. And the laws ask, is this how you want to end your life? As a laughingstock, living as a flatterer and a servant, going from feast to feast just to get a free dinner? Where is the philosopher Socrates then?
It's a pathetic image. Socrates, the great thinker, hiding in a goatskin, entertaining drunk Thessalians with stories of his great escape, all for a few more miserable years of life.
And finally, they circle back to the children. Crito started by saying, think of your sons. The laws answer that. They say, if you take them to Thessaly with you, you make them foreigners. You strip them of their precious Athenian citizenship. Is that really a gift? And if you leave them behind, do you really think your friends will take better care of them if you are a fugitive in Thessaly than if you are honorably dead and in the grave? Have some faith in your friends.
Wow. The laws really close every possible exit. They systematically dismantle every single one of Crito's points: reputation, family, friendship, self-preservation.
They end with a thunderous conclusion. They tell Socrates, "Listen to us who have brought you up. Think not of life and children first, and of justice afterwards, but of justice first."
And they issue a final warning about the afterlife.
Yes, this is the final blow. They say, if you die now, you die a victim of men, of bad jury, not a victim of the laws. You die innocent in our eyes. But if you escape, returning evil for evil and injury for injury, you break your covenants with us. And when you die, which will be soon anyway, our brothers, the laws of the world below, will not receive you kindly. They will know you tried to destroy their kin.
That is heavy. The laws of Hades will be waiting for him if he misbehaves.
It creates a cosmic continuity. Justice here on Earth is connected to justice in the afterlife. There is no escape. You can't outrun justice.
So the speech ends. This imaginary dialogue in Socrates' head is over. And we come back to the cell. Socrates looks at Crito.
Socrates describes the effect of this internal dialogue. It's a powerful description. He says the voice of the laws is murmuring in my ears like the sound of the flute in the ears of the mystic. It's an auditory hallucination almost, a divine buzzing. He says the sound is so loud it's drowning out everything else. He literally cannot hear Crito's arguments anymore.
And Crito, the desperate loving friend, finally accepts it. He's defeated.
It's a very sad but resolved moment. Socrates asks him if he has anything left to say, and Crito simply replies, "I have nothing to say, Socrates."
And Socrates ends the whole discussion with, "Leave me then, Crito, to fulfill the will of God and to follow whither he leads."
And that is it. He chooses to stay. He chooses to die. The argument is over.
It's an incredibly powerful story. But I want to zoom out a bit now. We've unpacked the text, but let's talk about why this short dialogue matters so much. This is widely considered the birth of the social contract.
It absolutely is. This idea of tacit consent, that by living in a place and accepting its benefits and protections, you implicitly agree to follow its rules, that is the foundation of most of modern political theory.
You mean guys like Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau?
All of them. They are all, in one way or another, wrestling with the ghost of Socrates in this cell. They might change the terms, they talk about a state of nature and natural rights, but the fundamental idea that government's legitimacy comes from the consent of the governed, even implied consent, starts right here.
But there's a huge tension in this text, isn't there? Because Socrates is also the guy who said, the unexamined life is not worth living. He is the ultimate individualist thinker. He's the patron saint of conscience. But here, he seems to be the ultimate conformist. Obey the state no matter what.
That is the central paradox of Socrates, and scholars have been debating it for millennia. In the Apology, which is his trial speech, he tells the jury, "If you acquit me on the condition that I stop doing philosophy, I will disobey you, because I must obey God rather than men. But here in the Crito, he says, I must obey the laws."
How do you reconcile that? It sounds like a direct contradiction.
There are a few ways to look at it. One popular argument is that he acts within the legal framework. He believes his duty to God to seek truth requires him to practice philosophy. He will do that until the state legally stops him by killing him, but he won't break the law to avoid the penalty.
So he respects the authority of the law, even if he disagrees with the specific application of it by a corrupt jury.
Exactly. It's the difference between the law and the men who administer it. He believes the laws of Athens are fundamentally just, even if the men on his jury were not.
So civil disobedience is okay up to a point, but you have to be willing to accept the punishment.
I think that's the core of it. Martin Luther King Jr. made a very similar point in his letter from Birmingham jail. He actually quoted Socrates. The idea is that you show the highest respect for law by accepting the penalty for breaking an unjust law in order to arouse the conscience of the community. Socrates isn't trying to overthrow Athens, he's trying to wake it up. And he accepts that the cost of that might be his own life.
It's also interesting to note that some people think this whole dialogue might be Plato, his student, trying to do some PR work to rehabilitate Socrates' reputation after his death.
Oh, absolutely. You have to remember the historical context we mentioned earlier. Socrates had some very bad students. Alcibiades was a brilliant but treacherous figure who defected to Sparta during the war. Critias was one of the 30 tyrants who led a brutal oligarchic coup in Athens. The public viewed Socrates as this subversive, anti-democratic element who taught tyrants.
So Plato writes this to say, look, you've got them all wrong. He wasn't a traitor. He loved the law so much he died for them.
It's a masterful piece of reputation management. It proves to posterity that Socrates was a loyal Athenian to the bitter end. He wasn't an anarchist. He was a super citizen. He was more loyal to the laws than the men who condemned him.
It really changes how you view him. He's not just a passive victim, he's an active participant in his own death. He wields his death as his final argument.
And that argument has lasted for 2,400 years.
This certainly has. Now, speaking of lasting arguments, I think it's time we take these ancient principles and test them against some modern or perhaps futuristic scenarios.
I'm ready. Let's see if the Socratic method holds up in the 21st century and beyond.
All right, this is the part of the show where we do our thought experiments. And a quick disclaimer. The following scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Do not try this at home or in space or in the metaverse.
Noted. Safety first.
Thought experiment number 1. The digital citizenship contract.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine a future where the state isn't a country with borders. It's a singular global AI platform. Let's call it the system. It governs all economic and social reality. You don't have a passport. You have a user ID. You were born onto the platform. Your digital identity was created the second you were born. You are educated by its algorithms. You work in its virtual workspace. You meet friends in its social simulations.
So the platform is the polis. It's the city.
Exactly. Outside the platform, there's only a barren, offline wilderness. No economy, no society, just rocks and maybe some rogue servers. Now, you've lived your entire life on this system for 70 years. You've accepted its terms of service every time they updated, usually by just clicking I agree without reading them.
As we all do. Tacit consent in its purest form.
Right. Suddenly, the system's master algorithm flags you for a violation you didn't commit. Let's say it's a misunderstood interaction that it interprets as subversive. It sentences you to digital death. Permanent deletion of your ID. You will be cast out into the offline wilderness to starve or simply vanish.
A modern hemlock.
Yeah.
A digital hemlock.
You have a hacker friend, let's call him Crito, and he says, I can do this. I can break the code. I can smuggle your consciousness, your data self, into a hidden, lawless server on the dark web. You'll be a glitch, a rogue entity, but you'll exist.
So the question is, do you go?
Does the Socratic argument hold up? By using the platform for 70 years, by clicking I agree 1,000 times, did you implicitly agree to be deleted if the algorithm says so? Is hacking the code injuring the parent that gave you your entire digital existence?
Wow, that's a great one because it tests the limits of the parent argument. The laws of Athens claimed they were Socrates' parents, but an AI platform is a corporate or functional entity. Does a line of code have moral authority?
Well, it provided your education, your job, your friends, your very ability to communicate and think. Without it, you are nothing. You are a biological shell with no identity.
If we follow Socrates strictly, the answer is, you have to accept the deletion.
Really?
I think so.
Yeah.
To hack the system is to introduce a virus, to introduce disorder. It is to act as a subverter of the code. If everyone hacked the system when they got banned, the whole system would collapse. And since the system supports all life, destroying the system is returning evil for evil on a massive scale.
So you just let yourself be deleted for a crime you didn't commit?
If you are a Socratic absolutist, yes. You might argue that the algorithm is mistaken, but the authority of the user agreement stands. You stayed. You clicked. I agree. You can't turn into a digital terrorist just because the terms are now inconvenient for you. Your soul, your digital integrity is more important than your digital survival.
That is bleak. But I see the logic. It's consistent.
However, a modern critic might argue that a social contract requires some level of human reciprocity. Can you have a moral contract with an unfeeling algorithm? If the parent is a cold line of code with no capacity for mercy or persuasion, maybe the filial duty doesn't apply. The Socrates would probably say, the code represents the order. You obey the order.
All right. Thought experiment number 2. The Martian colony.
Taking it to the stars. I like it.
You are born on a self-sustaining Mars colony. The state here isn't just an abstract set of laws, it's physics. The colony authority provides the oxygen generation, the artificial gravity, the water reclamation. It literally keeps you alive every second.
Okay, the stakes are higher.
Much higher. You're sentenced to airlock ejection for a crime you didn't commit, so miscarriage of justice. You can escape. You have a plan. You can sabotage the airlock pressure sensors, which will allow you to slip out during a maintenance cycle and escape to a rogue mining outpost nearby. But sabotaging those sensors will cause a permanent 1% drop in the efficiency and integrity of the colony's central life support grid. It won't kill anyone immediately, but it permanently weakens the fragile system that keeps everyone else alive.
This really raises the stakes of injuring the laws.
Exactly. In Athens, Socrates escaping might harm the reputation of the laws. On Mars, you escaping physically and measurably damages the parent that allows the entire community to breathe.
In this scenario, the Socratic argument is even stronger, almost unassailable. The parent-creator argument becomes brutally literal. The state is providing the air in your lungs. To sabotage the state is to attack the source of life for everyone.
So even if you are totally innocent,
Especially if you are innocent. Because if you sabotage the airlock, you are prioritizing your individual biological life over the collective structural integrity of the entire human project on Mars. You are returning evil real, physical damage to the grid for the evil of the unjust sentence. Socrates would say, walk into the airlock.
think not of life, but of justice first.
And in this case, justice is the preservation of the system that keeps your children and friends alive. If you break the seal, you endanger them all. It's the ultimate utilitarian calculus wrapped up in Socratic virtue ethics. Your personal injustice is a smaller evil than the potential catastrophic failure of the entire colony.
It really highlights how extreme and demanding Socrates' position is. It's not just be a law-abiding citizen. It's the collective structure is more important than your individual survival, always.
It is the death of the ego. And maybe that is why Socrates is the hero of the story for so many. He defeats his own most basic survival instinct with pure logic.
Which brings us, I think, to the end of our deep dive.
We have traveled from a dark cell in Athens to the red surface of Mars.
The mission was to understand the Crito. And I think the big takeaway for me is that for Socrates, the good life isn't just about breathing and eating and surviving. It's about living with a clean soul and uncorrupted character. And he believed that living with a corrupted soul, a soul that had betrayed its principles to save its own skin, was a fate literally worse than death.
He teaches us that we are not just isolated individuals. We are woven into a web of laws, relationships, and agreements, whether we acknowledge them or not. We draw nourishment and our very identity from our communities, and that creates a debt. Socrates, in the end, decided to pay his debt with his life.
So here's a final provocative thought for you to carry around with you today. If the laws of your country or your company or even just your community stood before you right now in human form and they asked you why you obey them, what would you say? Is it because you truly agree with them? Is it because you feel you've signed an implied contract? Or is it just because you haven't packed your bags yet?
That is the question, isn't it? Are we citizens by choice or just by habit?
Thanks for listening to Talk Treatises.
Until next time.
And as always, check the bio for a link to the text. Stay wise.